It's Chris, host of The Heart of the Story. Welcome to the show. Welcome. We've got another special guest in the building for today's show. Is it Samantha? Sam?
Yeah, Samantha feels formal.
Harper?
We go Sam Harper.
Sam Harper, less formal. That's the way to go.
Yes.
I'm Christopher, but literally no one calls me that. So
Chris?
Everyone just says Chris.
Yeah, right?
So
exactly.
That's the way to go. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's amazing.
I'm excited to see what unfolds here today.
Whatever's supposed to be said is going to be said. It's
Always.
Kind of the vibe.
Yeah.
So let's start with your early years. Where were you born and raised?
Born in Chicago, Illinois.
Okay.
Well, Joliet, so right outside of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And spent my younger years there, but then moved to Arizona when I was 9. And spent some time in Tucson, and would go back and forth to Chicago. And
So
then
Tucson, Chicago.
Chicago. And then moved to the Valley 16 years ago.
Mm.
Yeah.
16 years ago.
So I've been in the Valley for a minute.
What part of the Valley?
Mostly Central Phoenix, but I did some time in Scottsdale. Everybody has to do a moment in Scottsdale, you have to get it out of your system.
You had your Scottsdale moment?
Yeah. I tried to ground it, more than anything.
Scottsdale's a wild spot.
It is crazy, I know.
It's a wild spot.
Yeah.
So you did your tour of duty. Do you live up there now, or where do you live?
I live in downtown Phoenix.
Downtown Phoenix.
Yeah, that's really where my heart is, where it's a little bit more eclectic. Our downtown is kind of lackluster as far as it goes for downtowns, but at least there's some culture, there's art. I helped create the art district and develop the art scene from years ago, so I just love it down there.
That's a vibe. How much do you come out to the East Valley?
Hardly ever.
Hardly ever?
Yeah.
Whoa. Thanks for making the drive.
Yes, you're welcome.
That is quite the honor. That's quite the honor. I looked at you up, and I remember you did like a podcast. What else did you do?
I do so many different things. So, yeah, I have my podcast. I had an individual podcast for some time, but I've let that rest for now. And I'm a speaker, I'm a sound healer, and spiritual mentor, executive coach. They kind of all come together. So right now I'm in the middle of my speaking tour. I do 2 tours a year, one in the spring, one in the fall, and I'm about midway through. It's typically around 6 to 8 weeks. I'm in a different city every week.
All over the country?
Speaking on stages all over the country, international, I'm all over the place. So it's fun. I love it. I get to talk about frequency, sound, how we operate as conscious leaders, and bringing some of my background into the mix as a trauma therapist. So as a former trauma therapist, and now I get to bring in all sorts of facets.
That is very interesting. Very interesting. How did you get into that? From Tucson, going to Tucson, Chicago, did that come from like your parents or your childhood background? Or let's go back there. Like where was, like, when you moved to the Valley 16 years ago, why did you move to the Valley?
I moved here for grad school.
For grad school. So where'd you go to undergrad?
I went to undergrad at U of A. So bear down, let's go. Cats.
Okay. And then where'd you go grad school?
And then I went to Ottawa University, which is based out of Kansas, but there's a few different campuses here.
And there's one in Phoenix?
There's 3 in Phoenix.
3 in Phoenix?
Yeah.
And what'd you study?
Master's in professional counseling with an emphasis in trauma and expressive art therapy.
What inspired you to go down that road?
Well, so if we take it back to when I was much younger, I knew I wanted to help people from a very, very young age. I can distinctly remember around 9 years old saying that I wanted to be a therapist for children because I didn't want kids to feel how I felt. So I had, my fair share of trauma, as we all have our mixed bag of traumas, but it was really on my heart from a very young age, and I feel really blessed to have known my purpose for pretty much my whole life. And so I went down the psychology track. There was a moment where I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and turns out I'm in medicine anyway now, and so it all comes together and makes sense eventually. But that's kind of what led me down this path of helping people, and now I get to help people in a much broader sense, which is really beautiful.
when you did you go the traditional, just get a job as a therapist route to start? Was that?
Yeah, I was a
beginning?
behavioral health technician for a few years and then went on to get my master's degree so that I could be full therapist. And then I served a very challenging demographic of people for most of my career. So I was a trauma therapist for almost a decade and served sex offenders primarily and sexual abuse survivors, and then sprinkled in with, the deep traumas and substance abuse and domestic violence, all of that stuff. But the primary chunk of my work was working with sex offenders.
How was that on your soul, working with that on a day-to-day basis?
I didn't choose it. It chose me.
It chose you?
Yeah. So in my master's...
That sounds like that'd be heavy.
It was very heavy. It was incredibly heavy. But so in my master's, the professor asked, is anybody open to working with this demographic?
Really?
And I paused for a minute. Nobody raised their hands. And I was like, this would be really good if I can work, because it's the demographic that has the most barriers and the most stigma too. So I was like, if I can work with this population of people under the most supervision I'll ever have and be successful at it, then I can work with anybody. And so I was like, now's my chance to learn. And I said, I'll do it. And I ended up actually really loving it. And loved it for a really long time until it started getting a little intrusive on my personal life. And when I started off in that work, I was single, I didn't have kids, like it was a little bit of a different life. And then
did you get married?
Many years down the road, I was then married. I had 2 stepchildren, and then I had my own, and things started changing a little bit. My priorities were different, and the way that I took in information, I was having a more difficult time separating work from home. And then I knew, like, okay, my time here is done. For my own health and for the health of my family, it's best that I take a step back.
Marriage and being a therapist would be very difficult, I can imagine. It'd be quite difficult because you're
it's interesting.
kind of analyzing every single thing every single person would do for the most part.
Yes and no. Like when I wasn't at work, I didn't want to work, right? And so I wanted to turn off as much as I can, but you can't unknow the things that you know. You can't unsee the things that you see. Like patterns are so distinct, and so I couldn't ignore it. But I also didn't want to work more. And so there was, many years that I just let things kind of slide because it was easier that way.
It would be easier. Plus, you bring in that baggage, that the trauma that you would get servicing the clients that you service creates a level of trauma and a level of dark energy. It
was secondary, right? And so... I'd have to read the police reports and look at the pictures, and I'd be subpoenaed to court as a clinical expert, and send people back to prison, and it was heavy. It was really, really heavy work, and like I said, I loved it. And there's only so much of that you can take as a human, and I knew that my time of service was complete.
Well, I commend you for the time of service you did.
Thank you.
I remember hearing from some LDS Mormon, but I don't feel like I fit in the box of LDS Mormon typically. Yeah. I honestly believe, I'll just speak it now, I don't believe in the construct of religion. I don't know where you are on that vibe, but I feel like religion is built to divide. Yeah. And gospel is truth, and God and the Creator have a gospel truth. Gospel truth is just really more just the history of who we are. That's really what the gospel is. It's just a history of who we are, where we're going, where we've been, all that. Yeah. That's more what it is. And then religion tries to like put it in a box, and I hear all these different sects of religion, and they're like kind of saying the same thing, but then going off on their own little trap. Yeah. But with that being said, though, like I remember hearing somebody in my ward back in the day. It was a criminal defense attorney, and one of the young men in the ward, I don't know, 16, 17, was like, why would you choose the route of criminal defense attorney? And I think similar in your spot, it was a girl, a lady in the ward, and she goes, because at the end of the day, Jesus Christ is our criminal defense attorney.
Oh, that's good.
And
that's real good.
Are we not all broken and wounded and needing him to defend us?
Amen to that.
At the end.
Yes. Thank God.
And I think back on it, I'm like, the people who are willing to give their time and their energy to serving the people who have come from like real shit, right? Like sex offenders, criminals, as we call it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's commendable for sure.
Thank you.
100%. So then from there, where did you transition?
So after I left the behavioral health world, I stepped into a role at an international relief and development nonprofit organization, and I worked with the crisis management there and then the C-suite, helping them reacclimate to coming home from third world countries and being able to come back into the community and be able to do the work. Because when you go and you see the level of poverty that our organization was in, it's very striking and polarizing to go from that to come home and be like, oh my gosh, I have all of this.
How'd you get into that?
It was just a happenstance. I was actually not trying to get into that. It just kind of worked out that way.
Was it just a transition, literally just one job to the other? Was there a break?
No break.
Just one to the other.
I transitioned. I eased out of therapy, and then got into this, and I did that work for a couple of years, realizing that there was a cap there, and that's when I started doing consulting work in the coaching world, and then did primarily executive coaching, which has led me down the road that I'm on now. And I've had my own businesses for 7 years now.
Amazing. What made you decide to actually create your own business? Just creating a business is a move.
Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur by heart. I was that little girl knocking on doors, selling bracelets and wrapping paper and candles and chocolates. I've had this spirit my whole life. And also, I don't like to be told what to do. And shocker. And so, I want to do it myself. And I have a lot of grit for that. And so I was like, why not bet on myself?
100%.
There's no limitations here.
No, I'm with that 100%. I just said in another podcast earlier that I was like, entrepreneurship is a real life application of being a creator, the way we were built to become.
Ooh, yeah.
Entrepreneurship is not necessarily, it seems to be kind of a tied to business owner a lot of times. And there was this famous business guy, Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn. Yeah. It was like Pando Daily back in 2012 where he said, everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. It's more of a mindset than it is an actual job title.
Absolutely.
And that entrepreneur is all about just how well are you at change, pivoting, making hard decisions, right? Giving your all, building, creating something from scratch, and you can do that in every aspect of your life. Yeah. How have you found, tapping into that entrepreneurship side of yourself the last 7 years? How have you seen that impact every aspect of your life?
My whole entire life is completely different. The way that I think about time, the way I think about money, the way I think about relationships, the way I see the world, the way that I expend my energy, every single aspect of my life has completely shifted. I'm not working for time anymore. I'm working for outcome, and however long that takes, great. Sometimes it's a short period of time, sometimes it's a long period of time. It's the long game. Yeah. And most days, I honestly don't know what day it is because it doesn't matter. I don't live for the holidays anymore. I live every day. I don't live for the break in the weekend, And so I think that's kind of a good way to sum it all down is I'm actually living my life.
That's a novel idea.
Right?
Live your life. Actually living your life. That's a novel idea. Yeah. So you mentioned earlier at the time you were married with essentially 3 kids. Are you still married?
Not married anymore. Divorced.
When did that happen during this journey?
7 years ago.
So right when you went to the business owner route.
Yeah.
Okay. Did the career move in dictate any of that, or?
I was still working at the nonprofit throughout my divorce, but I realized oh, I need to like actually do something. I was like doing like 5 gigs at a time. I was like running social media for somebody, doing styling, helping with photo shoots. Like I was doing a mixed bag of things.
Writing yourself very thin.
Yeah, I was just like, I need to figure it out, right? I was in an MLM selling toothpaste and self tanner. Like,
dude, there's so many MLMs.
Hey, you know what? I made some
everything.
good money off of whitening toothpaste. I'll tell you what.
I bet.
So it was
an MLM I got pitched on real spit.
Really?
7 years ago. Scissors.
That's one I haven't heard of.
I was like, what would they think of next? I literally was all like, there's an MLM for everything.
Everything. So yeah, I was just trying to figure it out, like how I can make some money, and then I was just like, it's time for me to go all in on myself and what I know that I'm here to do. And so I did, scared and not knowing. And, you don't have the whole clear path when you're going into entrepreneurship. It's one step at a time, if that, if you're lucky enough to even see that far ahead.
So the divorce was part of the going out on your own journey.
Yeah, I would say that was part of one of many, many awakenings, and it was self-discovery and freedom. And it's like, okay, if I'm starting from nothing, what do I want to do? I was like, well, I want to do what I want to do, not what somebody is telling me to do. I'm not checking in with somebody else. Like, I'm going to really do what I want to do and what I'm called to do.
That makes sense. Makes sense. Similar boat, going through stuff like that myself over the last year, and getting to a spot of being able to wake up and say, no one's checking in on me. I don't have expectations.
Right.
It's just, can you make the income you need to make to pay the bills? And it's like, I can do whatever I want to make that income.
Right.
It's up to me. It's a blank canvas.
Exactly.
You can do whatever you want. How old is your kid now?
My son, Quinn, is going to be 12 in May.
Okay. How is he with this entrepreneur game?
Well, it's interesting. So he's
growing up in it now.
He's growing up in it. So he was 7 when COVID hit. And during that time, I was on business networking calls twice a week. And he would sit in my lap on these Zoom calls while I'm learning about building businesses, while I'm learning about back-end stuff on how to actually process your business, how to make it work. And he's in on these discussions. He's sitting in my lap right next to me. And I remember distinctly saying to the group of women at the time, I was like, if my son's not an entrepreneur by the time he's 10, I have failed him. Because he is watching my every move. He's literally listening to the same things that I'm doing. And so he's going to be able to do this so much faster than I could, with so much more information than I had. And sure enough, when he was 10, he started his own business at school and, doing small things. Like, he was making these pretend iPhone cases, like designing them, like going to the store, getting the boxes, cutting them out, designing them, the whole thing.
Elementary school?
Yeah. And then he transitioned into selling gibbets for Crocs. And he's always hustling. He's making necklaces for his baseball teams now. So he's got the spirit in him too.
I love that. So
Me too.
So it's kind of like brushed off on him.
Yeah.
As I was wondering, I was like, raising a kid in the entrepreneurship games, that's different than raising a kid just your typical 9-to-5 type path.
For sure.
What kind of struggles have you kind of came into?
I'm never off, right? And so I'm always working. And if I'm not in front of a client, I'm in the DMs answering questions. I'm investing in relationships that will potentially turn into clients. And so I'm always on. And he's asked me, he said, is it worth it? And I was like, it's not worth it. He goes, do you feel like you get paid enough for as much as you work? And I said, I do, but it looks different. So my time, like working a 9-to-5 is very predictable. And being an entrepreneur, like I'm answering DMs on the weekends or at nighttime or in between, like at the red light, I'm always working. And so I think for that, it's a little bit of a struggle to have solid boundaries. I've created some solid boundaries for myself to try not to let it like watercolor bleed into everything, but still, like, when the iron's hot, you have to strike sometimes, you know, like with entrepreneurship, at least for me, it's like I eat what I hunt. And so I have to hunt.
I get that. I mean, I know for myself with the entrepreneurship game, it's not about necessarily always getting paid in dollars.
Correct.
It's paid in that feeling that you get of not being tied down, being able to connect with other people and get energy connections from people.
Yeah.
And that is very satisfying in itself, you know, very fulfilling in itself. How is it with the travel, though? Travel's difficult for me with my son. Like, I get invited to go do events all over. It's difficult. Like I got this family office event that I got invited to out in Miami in a couple months, and I'm like, can't really go. You know, I got invited to one last fall, couldn't really go. It's hard to balance and juggle that. How are you balancing and juggling it?
Well, things have taken like a really positive shift with me and my ex-husband. We are able to co-parent quite well now, but it took a long time for us to get to a place where it's like, hey, I got an invitation to go do this. Can we bump a couple days here and there? And like we're pretty good with that now. But before that, it was like I was only saying yes to the days that I didn't have my son, and trying to squeeze as much into those days as possible. And now we have like an easier schedule, so it's a week on, week off. So right now it's my week off, so I'm not in mom mode right now. And I just got back from, where was I just at? I was somewhere. Oh, I was in Austin yesterday.
Texas.
Yes.
Okay.
Just got home from Austin. I'll be home for 48 hours. I'll be in Toronto for 4 days.
There you go.
I'll come home for my time, and then I'll be in Salt Lake City. So I've learned how to find the gaps of time and put as much into that as possible.
So in your weeks off, travel mode.
Yeah.
Weeks on, staying grounded.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So is your son going to regular school, or is he homeschooled, or?
Yeah, he goes to a regular school. There's no possible way I could homeschool him. I didn't go to school to be a teacher. I have no desire to be a teacher. There are teachers who are created and meant for that work, and so I'm going to stay in my lane.
I vibe with that. I definitely vibe with that. Well, how did you get into with your current partner? You have a partner on that podcast. Are you guys partnered in other stuff, or is it just that podcast?
Just the podcast. However, so Natalie Hunter, she's amazing. We've been friends for many, many years, and we work very similar in what we do. And we're like, we really should like just start recording our phone conversations. And
that's where it started.
Yeah, it's where it started. It was like, oh my gosh, people would love to hear this stuff. And so it blossomed into that. But we've done retreats together. We've spoken at the same events together, and we have some fun plans coming up for some possible retreats that we're going to do together also.
Love retreats.
Yes, you have to.
Soon. Out in the nature and the wildlife.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like God created us to be in the dirt.
That's right.
So let's get out to the dirt.
I love it.
So where are you going from here, story-wise, with your business? What's your goals next 5 years?
Yeah, well, I've got some really exciting things in the work right now. I'm about 50% through my book that I'm writing, so that's exciting. And then something that I'm even more excited about right now is I'm in development with an app right now with a business partner in Toronto, which is why I'll be out there. And it's going to be a prescriptive sound healing app that connects to wearables like the Apple Watch and the Oura Ring and the Whoop strap. And by opening it and connecting to the data points,
like an API connection? Okay.
An API connection to that. Yep. And it'll show your data points of like, okay, you haven't had sleep. Here's a sound healing session that will help mitigate those data points from going even bigger. And so we're in development right now. We're looking for investors right now. We're going to be beta testing this summer.
I came from the tech world, by the way.
Okay, well,
I'm a tech guy.
Let me know if you want to invest.
I know some people who would.
Perfect.
I know some good friends of mine who would.
The deck is ready and beautiful.
I came from the tech world, exited the tech company.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make some intros for you.
Amazing. I would love that.
The guys who actually funded Oura Ring are my homies.
Oh,
So
perfect.
yeah, they actually did a couple of health companies. So
Amazing.
I'll send you to those dudes.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the goal is to launch that fully by October through December, the end of this year.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And big thing that we always ask guests who come on this show is to highlight something. Person, place, thing, idea, concept.
Mm-hmm.
It's very broad. Whatever's on the mind, on the heart. What's on your mind? What's on your heart?
Mm-hmm. For the listeners to focus on?
Just whatever's on your mind. This is for you. You being authentic and just saying what's on your mind and heart.
Yeah, I'm finding a new bandwidth of capacity in myself. And so last year my business grew exponentially, and so I was going through the growth of expansion through business, and now I'm going through this expansion of capacity. And I find that the struggle is different, and it's untangible, so it's hard to figure out how to work through it. So I find myself of like, okay, like I said, I'm in the middle of the speaking tour right now, and probably one of the busier speaking tours that I've done. And so I'm like, okay, what's my capacity right now? My capacity needs to grow a little bit more than what I'm used to.
Does your son ever join you on tour?
Yeah, sometimes he does come with me.
Sometimes, okay.
Yeah. If it's close enough, then he can come. But so yeah, I'm working on capacity right now.
How are you building your capacity?
I'm doing a lot of self-care in between, so that when I'm on, I can be really, really on, really focused, really present. And then when I'm home, I can like turn it all off and just like really care for the soul and make sure that I'm aligned, because that's what I'm going out and talking about, is alignment and being in high frequency. So I do a lot of that. So I'm in high frequency when I'm at home. I'm doing all the things like the red light therapy, the vibration plates. I sit with plant medicine. I meditate several days.
Out here?
But I go to Optimize.
Oh, Optimize?
Yeah.
Okay.
My buddy's on Optimize, so I'm a big fan of that. And just like recalibration of the body so that the capacity is sustainable.
No, it makes sense. I mean, capacity, just like any kind of muscle, something you can build.
Right.
You can build through just repetitions and, rest and go through the motions. You can build and strengthen any kind of muscle.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, capacity is a huge one for sure. Tapping into source, I found a lot more capacity for myself last year than I had the previous 2 years. And realizing that I'm a creator helped me be able to tap into a lot more capacity than I'd done before. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that and respect that. Well, thank you for coming on our show today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me and having this conversation. It's fun to explore where things are going right now.
First of many. I mean, we're just getting to know each other now.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'll have more of these jam sessions as they happen naturally. But yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, that's another episode.